Every sign and every house, a journey starts and we allow the universe so vast and true. AstroViktor, it's here for you.
Hi, my dear Astro family. Here is a report on the upcoming full moon, which is going to be taking place on the 9th of August in all major time zones. And this is a very complex full moon. So let me just summarize what is happening. The full moon conjunct Mars-Saturn retrograde, the sun conjunct an asteroid called Callisto. We've got a T-square happening with Vesta in Scorpio on 15 degree. On top of that, the ruler of this full moon is Saturn, and Saturn makes an exact opposition to Mars. And Mars makes a sesqui square to this full moon, which is a 135-degree aspect. So there is a lot to uncover here. And I'm also going to be breaking this down for all 12 signs as well. And I'm going to give you 2 good scenarios and 2 challenging scenarios so that you can try to put it into your own life. But before we do that, I would like to invite you to check out on my website a couple of things. One of them is actually the 2026 yearly report. Each rising sign is approximately about 3 hours long, somewhere 2.5, 3 hours. Some of them actually extend the 3 hour as well. And what I will be covering in those videos are the big guns. So the mini grand trine between the outer planets, as well as Saturn and Jupiter's sign changes and the aspects that they are forming with each other. And on top of that, I will be covering 5 major asteroids that are very significant in 2026. Hopefully this report will help you navigate the year ahead. But let's get going actually with this full moon report. So first of all, full moon is happening on almost 17 degree of Aquarius, and it is on Virgo dwat. So of course, if we start thinking about Aquarius, I mean, this is an air sign known for its focus on the collective, innovation, independence, humanitarian ideas. Full moons in Aquarius are a time of awakening, urging us to break free from limitations, challenge the status quo, embrace our unique truth for the greater good. But it is on Virgo, Dwat. And Virgo is an earth sign ruled by Mercury, known for its practical, analytical nature, the attention to detail, and the desire to be in service or to create order. So when I want to bring them together, this full moon, being in the sign of Aquarius, but on Virgo Dwat, that the revolutionary and collective-minded energy of Aquarius is pretty much channeled through practical, analytical, detail-oriented lens. So it's kind of like a practical innovation instead of the abstract and chaotic change. This combination emphasizes something practical and tangible solutions to a collective issue. Or like I said, Aquarius is very humanitarian and Virgo is very service orientated. So it's kind of like the deep-seated need to analyze and improve systems or processes that benefit a community, for example. Rather than just simply dreaming about a better world, we're going to have to be super practical about it. And also maybe on a personal level, this what encourages you to critically examine your role within a group or a community. Maybe it's time to release limitations that are holding you back from offering your unique skills and talents in a way that is both authentic to you, but potentially beneficial to others as well. So what questions would I ask? I mean, on one hand, this is about self versus others. The full moon is basically when we have got the moon in the sign of Aquarius, and then the sun is in the sign of Leo. So they are creating a opposition. So think of the Leo sun who wants to be the center of attention, to express something creatively, to be seen, to be admired for unique brilliance. It's the king or the queen of the jungle, ruled by the heart. So your Aquarius moon is detached, is intellectual, it's focused on the collective, on the humanitarian ideas. And the moon rules your inner world, your emotions, your habits, your deepest needs. So your emotional self seeks freedom, uniqueness, and a sense of belonging to a larger group, not just the spotlight on the self. So I feel like this Aquarius full moon is a super potent time for you because it directly opposes your sun and illuminates your moon. It brings two opposing energies into sharp focus, offering a powerful opportunity to integrate, to balance things out in life. So this is about self versus others. Like, am I seeking a recognition for my own ego? And that's Leo. Or am I using my platform to uplift and serve the community? And that's Aquarius. Well, Leo represents the heart and Aquarius represents the mind. So are my emotional needs for love and attention clouding my objective judgment and forward-thinking ideas? Or something personal versus something universal? So what am I doing to express my unique self in a way that contributes to others as well? Or creativity versus innovation. How can I channel my creative flair into innovative ideas and solutions that benefit a wider group of people? So it's kind of like I've got a unique talent and I'm going to have to be able to put that on the world stage. And not to mention, Leo is very dramatic. Aquarius wants to run away from it. So am I creating unnecessary drama to get attention? Or am I able to emotionally detach enough to see the bigger picture? All these needs to be balanced out. Balancing personal expressions versus with the expressions of what others also need. It's about balancing out the ego and the humanity. You know, the ego is powerful, but there are humanitarian principles also. And the lower vibration of Leo can be self-centered, attention-seeking, while the lower vibration of Aquarius can be cold and emotionally detached. So the goal is to merge them, to use your warm, generous heart to create a more inclusive, like an equitable world. Now, this full moon has got a very tight conjunction to Pallas Athene. Pallas Athene is in retrograde motion right now. Pallas Athene is the asteroid of strategic wisdom, creative intelligence, justice, and how we use our minds to find patterns and solutions. She is a warrior goddess, though, who fights with strategy and intellect, not brute force. She is the sister of Mars, and both represent war. But one doesn't go into the war unless it's super necessary. She's often associated with the father archetype as well, and how we relate to authority because she was born from the head of Zeus. But she is retrograde, so her energy is internalized. We are asked to review our strategies, reconsider our intellectual approach, to look inward to find the creative solutions. But it's in a very tight conjunction to that full moon. And, like we said, Aquarius represents the collective, the humanity, the innovation. So it looks like that there is an urge to use intellect and strategic mind to find innovative solutions for community, for the problems of your friends, for your own freedom. And for a Leo sun, this means using the creative brilliance and the leadership skills, not just for personal fame or shining, but to thoughtfully and strategically help others, like help the people. Now, we also have got a very tight square to Vesta as well in the sign of Scorpio. And Vesta is an asteroid that represents devotion, focus, sacredness, something that we might be willing to sacrifice for a higher purpose. She is the keeper of a sacred flame, both literally in the Roman temples as well as symbolically, because it's also within us. So it really feels like in the sign of Scorpio, we are very devoted to our privacy. We have focused something on transformative, something that is sacred to us. It's like a psychological complexes or our energy or a devotion to a cause. You know, Scorpio is not about something like doing things halfway. Vesta here is all in, all or nothing. So, because it's a square, it's an aspect of tension and challenge. It's a friction. Vesta focused deeply on a devotion, and the full moon is detached. It's collective mind energy in the sign of Aquarius. So again, it really feels like that we've got this sacred flame of ours, what my needs are, but what the needs are of others. It's kind of like, you know, in the political world, I can imagine that I want to do something that is good for me, but is it really good for people as well? And you can put that into your own life also. Like, do I do it for the sake of doing it for myself, or do I do it because maybe others can actually benefit from it as well? So something this square is asking you to confront the question of whether your personal intense devotions is serving your detached humanitarian ideas. Are you pouring your energy into one person or into one cause? And maybe it's preventing you from engaging with a wider audience, for example. And, you know, one side of it is super emotionally committed, while the other side is intellectually committed. So Vesta in Scorpio is emotionally and psychologically intense, even obsessive. The Aquarius moon is very logical, very detached, of course, especially with the Pallas Athene there. So this could feel like a push and pull between an emotionally charged commitment and the more objective intellectual one. Maybe the challenge is to find a way for your passionate devotion to fuel your intellectual and collective aspirations without becoming controlling or emotionally manipulative. It really feels like the full moon in Aquarius with Pallas Athene is about what you will do and how you will strategically do it. Vesta in Scorpio is about the why, so the deep sacred purpose that drives you. And I would say that, you know, it's all about the integration of your ego and your intellect, harmonizing the passion and the detachment, and also potentially, you know, where do you place your sacred commitment? Is it to yourself, to a few selected people, or to a wider community? Are you using your own talents and intelligence to serve that commitment in a meaningful and strategic way? So I want to give you some potential scenarios. Maybe let's imagine that you are a creative leader and Leo wants to be the star of a new community project. And you have got this brilliant, innovative idea. That's the Aquarius full moon, and a clear, very strategic plan, Pallas Athene. And then you feel passionately devoted to this project. That's Vesta in Scorpio. However, you might start noticing a tension. Maybe being more focused on getting credit for the ideas and being seen as a leader, that's Leo, rather than on the actual work of the entire team. And therefore, the devotion can become possessive, and then you might find yourself micromanaging or getting emotionally charged when others propose different ideas. So this full moon is asking us somehow to step back and reevaluate because Pallas Athene is retrograde. We must confront the ego-driven aspect of that leadership. And the breakthrough will come when we realize our own true power isn't only about being a boss or being a charismatic leader, but it's a leader who also inspires and empowers others, and someone who is able to potentially delegate and appreciate the good work. Or let's imagine that it's something to do with activism. I mean, maybe we are very passionate about like a activism, and you are really articulate about it, and then you've got these innovative ideas of what type of changes needs to be done in social settings. And then maybe we spend a lot of time on social media and then fighting for a cause. But then the Leo sun craves validation. And then we might find ourselves getting into intense, emotionally charged debates. And that's Vesta in Scorpio. So the focus shifts from the cause to a personal battle, potentially of wits, for example. And it's kind of like feeling that obsessive need to win the argument. So therefore, potentially we can alienate allies or lose sight of the actual goal that we had at the first place. So this full moon can become a wake-up call when we have to realize that all these like digital battlefields isn't really creating a real change. So Pallas Athene retrograde is like asking us to reconsider our own strategy, to step back from this public debate and focus, on something more tangible, more achievable project, or how to create a win-win scenario. And also, if we think of, Leo, which might represent the artist or the muses as well. So maybe you are an artist and then you are working on a deeply personal project, Vesta in Scorpio. And maybe the work is brilliant and innovative, but the Leo sun wants the work to be seen and celebrated and potentially to make money out of it as well. But there is this deep inner conflict here because the work is super personal and sacred to them, and they are afraid to share it with the world because maybe they are going to misuse this creative art or something like that. And I have put so much energy and devotion into it, and maybe I don't want to give it away. So that full moon is kind of like giving us a moment of clarity, like what exactly I want to do. And maybe potentially the Pallas retrograde helps us to realize that our art is not just for ourselves, but maybe it's a gift potentially for everyone. And let's imagine in relationships, because oppositions often represent relationship matters, and maybe you are in a committed partnership, and that's Vesta in Scorpio, which is so focused on creating private bonds. But the Leo sun wants to be the center of the partner's universe. And then you have got these innovative ideas for the future of the relationship, and that's Aquarius full moon. However, you might notice that your partner is more invested in their social groups or in certain type of other projects. And you feel like that you are so focused to the both of you as a unit, and someone is acting in a detached way. So therefore, it can create certain type of jealousy, and you might feel emotionally neglected. So we might need to be asking them the question whether our devotion is healthy, or do we have the tendency to control, or do codependency as well? So these are some of the topics. Now I want to look at it, how it might play out, for example, in the world. And because Pallas Athene retrograde is surely about reconsidering our strategies, so we might see actually that world leaders, political bodies, politicians, and social movements forced to reconsider their long-term strategies. Like old approaches to solving, let's say, a global problem, which might be climate change or economic scenarios or international conflicts, these are ineffective. These are not working anymore. And maybe there is also a call to look inward and address the ethical and the moral foundation of certain type of systems. Maybe our laws and international agreements will be not just anymore. And we need to kind of realize that. And maybe we need to be proposing something more equitable. And maybe we have to be reassessing technology as well. I mean, Aquarius is very technological. So Pallas retrograde could point to a global reevaluation of how we are using AI and social media and other digital tools. And there could be a lot more talk about it. Now, of course, Vesta is super devoted. So, on a world stage, there is a tension here between openly stated collective goals, and that's the full moon, and powerful, often very hidden commitments, and that's Vesta in Scorpio. So what we see and what we know might not be the same. And I would say that there could be sudden unveiling of hidden agendas because the full moon always illuminates something. It can be exposing the secret deals or corrupt practices or the hidden motives of political figures and organizations. And that's really the Vesta in Scorpio. And of course, it could lead to a public outrage and a call for revolutionary change. And Pallas retrograde suggests that a major political or even military strategy may be revealed, and maybe the fundamental flows of that are also revealed. Maybe this is a stalling period, kind of like, we do know that there are a couple of battles going on in the world, right? So someone can be slowing down here, someone who might be reevaluating their ongoing conflict, for example. And maybe instead of a direct win, the focus shifts to internal debate and the search for a more effective approach or a win-win scenario. And there could be ideological clashes also, like a major public confrontation between a group who is very devoted to a specific cause and the broader humanitarian principles of the collective. So it's kind of like, again, me versus others, basically. So imagine a group who is very devoted to like a religious or a nationalistic ideology, and it comes into a direct conflict with a global movement for human rights. So that could be most likely one of the possible scenarios that I can imagine, of course, happening nowadays. Now, there is a lot more to this full moon because the traditional ruler of the full moon is Saturn. And Saturn has got a very exact opposition to Mars, Mars in Libra, to be precise. So the Mars, the planet of war, is in the sign of peace, justice, and partnership. This is a difficult placement for Mars. Its energy is expressed through diplomacy, negotiations, and the desire for fairness. So it can lead to passive aggression, indecisiveness, or just the fight for justice and equality. Now, I did make a video about the kite configuration that is happening right now, so you might want to be revisiting that because there is a lot more to mention about this, but I'm not going to be very thorough with this. But Saturn in Aries, and Saturn represents the rules. but it's in a sign of impulsive, individualistic sign. So it's also a very difficult placement because Saturn's natural tendency to restrict and delay now is in direct conflict with Aries' drive to act right now. And of course, it could represent a fear of action as well, or this heavy sense of responsibility, or the self-imposed discipline as well. So I can imagine some political negotiations and standoff. Like, let's imagine that there is a group of nations. They are in negotiations to pass, let's say, a new international law for human rights or something to do with climate change. And the country with the most political influence, and that's Saturn in Aries, is imposing these rigid rules and acting from a place of self-interest and national pride, or like unwilling to compromise. And this is met with resistance from a coalition of other nations, and that's Mars in Libra, who are potentially passionately fighting for justice and fairness and something more equitable solution. So, because it's an opposition, it's very difficult to find the middle ground, though. So the negotiations with the Pallas-Athene retrograde could stall entirely, and therefore it can be a tense standoff. Mars in Libra won't back down from its fight for justice, and Saturn in Aries won't budge from its position of authority either. So Pallas retrograde suggests that a new strategy is needed, but the Vesta square highlights that like deeply held private commitments, all on all sides are actually preventing a solution. Or I can imagine a social justice movement as well, because full moon in Aquarius is all about social justice and movement. And maybe it's gaining a momentum. We are pushing for a certain type of a change, and that movement is very focused on fairness and equality, Mars in Libra, and maybe we using like peaceful protests and legal challenges to get the message across. But this is again meeting resistance from an established system, an established authority, and that's Saturn in Aries, who is enforcing those strict rules and regulations, and even potentially using fear or kind of like heavy-handed approach to maintain order. Who does it sound like, right? I cannot even imagine. So, of course, again, it's kind of like an element of clash between the people and the government, actually. And while the people are demanding for justice, the authorities are trying to reinforce the rules. But you know what? Imagine a workplace where maybe there is a large corporation or organization and the new policy is being implemented and people find it unfair. So there is an internal group of employees who rises up being an advocate for a more just and equitable system. And the leadership, Saturn in Aries, kind of like says, no, it's a firm decision. Maybe they are even citing company rules or traditions or the way things have always been done. So it can create a difficult environment at work, right? So it's kind of like the workers versus the management. So again, Pallas Athene retrograde suggests that the employee strategy for protest might need to be reevaluated, and maybe they need to be coming up with somehow a win-win scenario. But of course, Vesta in Scorpio is super focused, even to their rights as well, or just to get the fair working environment. So that's a couple of scenarios that I can imagine. However, I really hope that Pallas is able to spot the patterns And then we end up using wisdom and strategy to avoid any type of conflict. Because Saturn and Mars right now is really conflictual. So Pallas Athene is about seeing the pattern. That's her primary function, to recognize the patterns and to understand the root cause of the conflict. So instead of just reacting to that tension that the Mars-Saturn creates, like the fight for justice versus rigid authorities, Pallas can help us see that the conflict is a recurring pattern. So it's not just about one solution or this particular one to be solved. Maybe it's a structural issue. Or, the full moon in Aquarius, which, like I said, it's about intellectual detachment and objectivity. So Pallas works best when she's not emotionally entangled. So maybe we're just gonna have to walk away and allowing ourselves to be cool, like looking at it strategically, or helping individuals or groups to step back from their emotional heat, because Mars and Saturn are highly emotional. And maybe we need to just think of like the goal is not necessarily to win a fight, but to find a solution that works the best for both of us or for everyone. And Pallas is really telling us that it's all about creative solutions, creative intelligence. Like I said at the beginning, Pallas doesn't fight with brute force. She outsmarts the opponent. So let's do a lot of brainstorming. Let's do a lot of like coming up with a lot of innovative solutions. Maybe that satisfy both the need for justice and the need to order and structure as well. And maybe this is an option, Aquarius, that has never been considered or done before. I think Pallas retrograde is about rethinking the battle, reevaluating the strategies. This is not a time when we have to be charging forward with a plan, but there needs to be an internal review first. So altogether, it really feels like that this full moon is telling us, do not rush into a fight. Even when you feel the tension, step back and analyze. What's the real source of that conflict? Use your mind, not just your muscle. Instead of getting into heated arguments, maybe write down your thoughts, do a diagram or, stuff like that, and find a creative way to express your own points and look for win-win scenarios. Then this full moon should not be too difficult. Now, we do have got, like I said at the beginning, we've got an asteroid involved here, and that's Callisto. And in Greek mythology, Callisto was a nymph, a companion of the goddess Artemis, and she was a devoted huntress who had sworn of a vow of chastity, and she was renowned for her beauty. Her name literally meaning the most beautiful, actually. And her story is quite a tragic one. It is based on betrayal, transformation. Well, the betrayal part really comes from Zeus. Zeus, of course, became infatuated with Callisto, and in one version, he tricked her by disguising himself as Artemis, her beloved goddess, and the figure she trusted. In other versions, he simply seduced her, and Callisto got pregnant. And when her pregnancy got discovered by Artemis, he was furious because of the broken vow, so turned her into a bear. In some accounts, Zeus' jealous wife Hera did that, but you know, who knows? So years later, Callisto's son Arcas grew up and, not recognizing his mother in her bear form, was about to hunt and kill her. Just before this tragic moment, Zeus intervened, saving both the mom and the son by placing them in the heavens as the constellations Ursa Major, the great bear, and Ursa Minor, the little bear. So that would be the story there. So what does Callisto represent? Callisto represents betrayal and its consequences. Like it's the deep wound of being betrayed, especially by someone you trust or a system that you have been devoted to. And maybe there is that force to change or transform, maybe due to a traumatic event or an outside force. You know, this transformation wasn't chosen. It's the consequence of a certain type of a circumstance. And, you know, someone who got wronged here and then punished for the wrong doing. So there was an injustice here. Callisto was the victim. She got seduced. Zeus posed himself as Artemis. So she was a big victim, but she got blamed for it. She got even punished. So how we can integrate Callisto into this full moon? I mean, Callisto conjunct the sun, so therefore it opposes the moon. And if moon represents people, the people are super disappointed somehow. They feel betrayed. So of course, it's a full moon, which is already illumination. So Callisto with that illumination is with the sun shining a light on an act of betrayal or injustice. And maybe that injustice comes from a group of people, Aquarius, or a situation where, you know, like integrity was somehow compromised. And also something personal and political as well. So maybe there is a situation where you are a victim of a system, of a political change, for example, and then they kind of fine you, but you feel like they are in the wrong. Obviously, with Vesta in Scorpio, this is an emotional weight there, and that is being illuminated. And the Mars-Saturn opposition is, you know, an external conflict, and that gets that is brought to light. So for the Leo sun, it really feels like that I got betrayed again, or it is affecting my public image or social standing. And Callisto became the constellation, like a permanent fixture in the sky. So it really feels like that it is also asking us to acknowledge the way you might betray yourself, the unjust ways of treating the self. And instead of allowing the betrayers to define who you are, I feel like that conjunction with the sun encourages you to own that as part of your identity. And of course, Pallas Athene has got the strategic wisdom here. And Pallas can help you figure out how the strategic, like how to move strategically beyond being a victim. So this is the full moon in the sign of Aquarius. What if we broke that down now for the 12 signs? Let's do that. Let's start with Aries rising sign. So Aries rising sign, the full moon is taking place in your 11th house, which represent community, friends, hopes, dreams, wishes. And this illuminates your social circle and your long-term goals. Now we've got Sun and Callisto conjunction in your 5th house, which is creativity, romance, and self-expression. Vesta is in your 8th house, representing shared resources and transformation. And then you've got Mars, which is, by the way, your ruler, is in Libra in your 7th house, opposing Saturn in your 1st. So let's look at a couple of challenging scenarios. Let's imagine that a friend of yours betrays you. Like we've got this old friend, maybe reveals a secret that was based on a lie. And that's Callisto and Sun conjunction in the 5th house. And this betrayal rooted in a very, like maybe rooted in a romantic situations. And maybe it forces you to reevaluate your entire social circle or what you hope to achieve with them. And of course, you've got your direct actions, Mars in Libra, to confront this person, but it is meeting a strong resistance. Because you are like, you know what, I'm more disciplined than that, or I'm the bigger person. So, and maybe when you get to that scenario, I feel like frozen or unable to assert myself effectively. Or maybe you are very devoted to a cause or an organization or even work, but there could be a conflict, maybe between your group's ideas and some type of powerful behind the scene authority figure. And maybe you feel like that you need to be fighting for fairness, but there is that subconscious fear of like the sense of responsibility, which makes you hesitate. And maybe therefore it can lead to certain type of sacrifice of your own principles just for the friends of yours, for example, or for the co-workers' sake. However, a couple of good scenarios. Maybe you have got this personal drive and this strategic mind, Palasatini, in the 11th house to lead a project with a group of friends. And your passion and confidence, Sun in the 5th house, inspire others. And there is this personal story of overcoming a past betrayal becomes the central, empowering theme of your work. And that's Callisto. And maybe this project somehow can become a new hope and unity for yourself. And maybe that you are able to balance out your need for personal recognition with the goals of the community. And maybe this is also a partnership or a collaboration you've been working on, Mars in the 7th house, and it reaches a certain type of a breakthrough. And this full moon is illuminating, brings light to a new strategic way to work together or finding the middle ground that respects both your individuality as well as the needs of the others as well. And that could lead to being able to transform your shared resources and creating something like a new structure, something that is actually equitable, powerful, and even profitable. I would say that this full moon is surely about being able to express yourself the way you want to. It's in a way being the non-apologetic version of yourself. But it really feels like that in the past, you might have done that already. And maybe it was rejected. It wasn't well received. And then now you might be hesitating or you want to be a little bit careful. And that's why potentially you are coming up with a plan of how this could be done. And that's Paula Satini retrograde, who is reconsidering the strategies and then how we did that in the past. So that is for Aries rising sign. Do I have anything else that I wanted to mention for you? No. So let's move on to Taurus. So, Taurus, you have got the full moon happening in your 10th house, which is career, reputation, public standing. So this full moon illuminates your professional life. Now we've got the Sun and Callisto conjunction in your 4th house, which represents the home, family, and inner foundation. You've got Vesta in your 7th house, the house of partnership. And then you've got Mars in Libra in your 6th house, while Saturn is in the 12th house. So let's look at a couple of challenging scenarios. Maybe you feel like that your reputation or your public image is going under a bit of a scrutiny. And maybe you also feel like maybe this is due to a family matter or something that was very personal to you gets revealed. And then it feels like that this should not have happened in a professional setting or a coworker or daily task you are so devoted to now feels like a source of stress, and that's Vesta and Mars in the 6th house. And of course, it looks like that you're trying to rectify the situation, Mars in Libra in the sixth house, but these are undermined by the fear of making a mistake or certain type of self-sabotaging habits. Maybe you are very committed to a romantic partnership or even a business partnership, but there are certain type of sudden issues in your daily work, and that could create a conflict. And the demands of your partner just feels unjust, but your anxiety and hidden fears prevent you from asserting your needs directly. And that's Saturn in the 12th house. So the full moon in your 10th house brings this entire situation to a head. It's like a public event. Potentially, it might be happening in front of others. However, this could really talk to you about career breakthroughs as well, like an innovative opportunity to advance further. So you can be getting a promotion or a public recognition for a project that you developed, something that you were so devoted to. And maybe there is this dedication to your partner or a close collaborator, someone who might have helped you in this success, and you recognize it. And there is this strategic planning as well, which is actually able to navigate you to see, for example, that you don't need to be doubting yourself anymore. Because the Sun and Callisto conjunction can indicate that a lot of things have been promised to you at work before, but potentially it always led to a certain type of a betrayal. And now maybe you don't believe that this could be happening to you. And maybe you also find strategic ways to restructure your daily routines and your work life, maybe to better support your family or your emotional well-being. Maybe there is a tension between your career and your personal life, but now you are finding a new and efficient plan to navigate these. For me, this full moon for you, Taurus, really feels like that um, that it illuminates like the ways in which you feel held back in your career. And maybe you feel super inspired to make changes. So if there is a promotion out there, gone for it. If it's a new career direction that you would like to take, then I would say get clear about it. And then if you don't see that there is something wrong with it, then I would say just go for it. What can you lose? And I would say that do not underestimate yourself whatsoever, because you do have got the abilities that can give you that exposure. That's exactly what happens with any type of full moons. They are exposing you somehow. Be exposed for the right reason. Let's move on to Gemini rising sign. So, Gemini rising sign, we do have got this full moon happening in your ninth house. The ninth house represents learning, travel, and beliefs. And this illuminates your worldview, a quest for knowledge. But we've got the Sun and Callisto conjunction in your third house, which represents siblings, communication, and local community. Vesta in your sixth house of health and service, and Mars is in Libra in your fifth house, the house of creativity, children, opposing Saturn in your 11th house. So I can imagine that your beliefs or your personal philosophy, ninth house full moon, somehow are challenged by a betrayal from a close sibling or a member of the community. And that's Callisto and the Sun in the third. Somehow there is this injustice that forces you to question everything you have believed to be true. Maybe your creative and your romantic life, Mars in the fifth house, feels a little bit stifled, maybe by the rules of boundaries of a group that you are part of, or, the devotion to a particular cause. maybe that is in conflict somehow with your desire for personal expressions. Or maybe you are so passionately devoted to a project at work or even a health routines. That's Vesta in the six. But a creative idea or a romantic moment, uh, is kind of like met with resistance from a group of or a social circle. Like you would like to introduce your partner to your friends, and then they show hesitance. And this full moon brings a light that your efforts are based on maybe potentially a narrow belief system. And Pallas Athene retrograde suggests that you need to rethink your entire strategy. It's something to do with your personal desire and the group expectations and how to balance that out. Positively speaking, I can imagine that you are about to give birth to a creative project which is all about you. And maybe you come up with a strategy how to share these revolutionary ideas. Strategy comes from Pallas Athene. Maybe it's a personal story of overcoming a betrayal, for example, and that becomes a powerful message. And maybe that is resonating with a wider audience. And I also can imagine that you find creative solutions that resolves a conflict between your need for personal expression and validation and the group ideas or the group rules. And maybe you want to use a disciplined approach to build a new community or a social group, or building a group that is based on fairness or mutual respect. So it really feels like that this new moon would like you to see the bigger picture. But also that Mars is making a trine to Uranus and Pluto as well. So we've got a grand trine going on. And it helps you to take some risks as well, or to express yourself in new ways. And it's excellent for new romantic life to be attracted as well. But there is that opposition to Saturn as well as Neptune. There are some blocks there, blocks from the friends, and maybe there are people who are stopping you from stepping outside. Or simply you are anxious and then you have got this stage fright, and that gets in the way. So, by the way, Saturn and Neptune is in a kite configuration, and that's the focal point there. So, you're going to have to be working with some society, some rules, some obligations towards people, or in a way, listening to your audience because somehow they are rejecting you. But, a full moon is a culmination point. So something is getting culminated here, connected to long distance travel, education, faith, opinions. So I feel like that this is, in a way, you are ready to show the world who you are. You are being dared, or you dare to embrace a new belief, or you are welcoming new knowledge as well into your life. So you are opening up yourself to new horizons. Okay, let's move on to Cancer rising sign. So we've got the full moon in your eighth house. Therefore, Sun and Callisto in your second house, Vesta in your fifth house, and Mars in your fourth, and Saturn in the 10th. So on one hand, this could talk to us about financial betrayal, maybe a sudden revelation about shared finances or an inheritance matter where you have been betrayed. And maybe it was detrimental to your personal income as well. And then because of this crisis, it forces you to confront a powerful person, like an institution who screwed you over. And then you feel this push to fight for fairness, even at home, or maybe the professional demands and authority figures feels like that they are restricting your actions. And you feel trapped. And maybe you feel like, I don't know how to resolve all these conflicts around me. But also your romantic life that you are super devoted to, Vesta in the fifth house, it comes in conflict with the demands of your home and the family. And the tension is potentially just kind of growing, and there is that rigid structure there in your career and your sense of duty or the pressure by the workplace or the bills or by the parents as well. So somehow this full moon highlights your financial situations and certain type of debts. Like imagine that the family is making you feel like that you owe them because they raised you. And then you feel like that you are getting betrayed by them and that this might be holding you back. However, positively speaking, this full moon is also illuminates a plan here. How am I going to transform my finances? And maybe you are finding new innovative ways to manage your debts, or there have been this long-standing financial issue, and then we find a resolution to it. And maybe you are working with your own self-worth and sense of value, and that's the Sun and Callisto in your second house. And of course, the Vesta is super focused and devoted to find a way to create a more stable and beautiful and enjoyable life. And Saturn is taking you towards taking like disciplined actions so that we can improve our career, and therefore our emotional well-being is going to improve as well. And of course, this might be talking to you about you want to find new ways of balancing your career and your home life. And maybe there is the tension between your home and the career, but it becomes a sense of motivation for you. And Pallas is helping you to find a solution that maybe allows you to become a better parent, but also you can be excelling in your career as well. So Cancer rising sign, maybe um, you have got a sensitive soul, but you are encouraged to do this introspection, to look within and to release something in your life. And maybe you have been keeping the real truth from yourself, or someone is keeping the truth from you. And maybe you have been ignoring your own emotional needs. So this Aquarius full moon is illuminating, trying to show you the way how to become a more authentic version of yourself. I feel like that Mars in your fourth house, which is also in trine to Uranus and Pluto, creating this grand air trine, it gives you a lot of knowledge, actually. It gives you a lot of insight from the past. And if you can channel that, it will empower you to take action regarding family histories or moving houses. It is about defining your role within the family as well. Yes, that Mars opposes Saturn and Neptune, right? So we do have got fears around career or an authority figure or how the future is going to look like. And because Saturn and Neptune is the focal point of the kite configuration, you're going to have to be dealing with your own status. It looks like that might be the key here. And it says, get serious about building up a better future. Um, okay, let's move on to Leo rising sign. So Leo, the full moon is happening in your seventh house. And we've got the Sun and Callisto conjunction in your first, Vesta in your fourth, and Mars in the third, Saturn in the ninth. So maybe you feel betrayed by a partner. You've got this sense of self, and it might be betrayed by a key figure in your life. And this is not just a romantic connection. You might feel that you are treated unfairly, and this is actually prompting you to reevaluate of who you are. And maybe there is this desire to communicate your feelings or to fight for fairness. And of course, that's Mars in your third. But maybe it meets certain type of resistance. Maybe you feel like that they are not listening to you. Or maybe your own deeply held belief system that is actually the resistance there. And maybe you feel silenced, you feel unheard. And I mean, there could be a lot of devotion to your home and family, of course, with Vesta in your fourth house, but that is in conflict with the partner. So, and then you want to communicate about it, but it might become a little bit more aggressive or combative as well. And maybe you are feeling like that your actions and your belief systems are challenged by someone, like your partner. So this full moon can illuminate this conflict. However, the positive side of this is that you can experience a breakthrough through a relationship. There is a journey here, a journey of healing from past betrayals. Maybe it's a previous relationship, but it allowed you to enter a new partnership, hopefully with a renewed sense of confidence. And Pallas is trying to help you to find creative ways to solve this problem, to be able to see the patterns. And then the opposition from Saturn in the ninth house, might become a source of motivation because it's all about let's expand my beliefs. Let's find a more harmonious way to communicate. And maybe you even use your personal charisma to communicate a new idea of yours to the public. Pallas and Moon conjunction in the seventh house. And maybe the inspiration is because I want to buy a home. I want to have an internal great foundation there. So we can use that Saturn-Mars opposition to channel our passion into something completely new. On top of that, Mars is making a trine to Uranus and Pluto as well, forming this grand air trine. So there is a lot of information here coming with the action. It is influenced by a significant relationship, and therefore you can make a lot of new contacts and opportunities can be coming through others as well. Maybe this grand trine is helping you to put you in touch with the right people. That opposition to Saturn, Neptune, challenges are expected, maybe around travel, education, or faith, or your own belief system. And that could be weakening your actions slightly bit. But remember, Saturn and Neptune are the focal point of the kite configuration. So it's something that you have to be dealing with. You need to have the knowledge and you need to have the right belief system. Okay, let's move on to Virgo rising sign. So, Virgo rising sign, this full moon is going to be happening in your sixth house, the house of health, work, and service. Therefore, you've got the Sun Callisto conjunction in your 12th house, Vesta in your third, Mars in your second house, and opposing Saturn in your eighth. So the challenging side of things here is that there might be some self-sabotaging habits that are your enemies when it comes to light, somehow affecting your daily routine and your health as well. Maybe you need to fight for financial fairness. That's Mars in the second house. Maybe you need to find motivation to get your finances going. But there is this unconscious fear or a debt that is holding you back from being able to move forward. Vesta is very devoted to communicate, but maybe you are challenged somehow by your inability to confront the issue directly. And there could be a financial crisis or an issue with your personal income, and it is in direct conflict with your debts or financial obligations. Like there is a delay, for example, at work with paying off your wages, and then I cannot pay the rent, for example, on time. And this is affecting your health because you might be stressed out because of that. But maybe you are super devoted to find a solution, but a hidden enemy or a self-sabotaging habit prevents you from taking effective actions. So the full moon somehow illuminates this injustice here. However, there could be positive sides to this also. Healing, for example. Maybe it's a long-standing health issue that you are about to start healing, and therefore you are transforming your daily routines completely. And you come up with this strategy that helps you find a new way to work that is more effective, more efficient. And that personal journey of healing from a betrayal even becomes the source of strength and wisdom. And Mars and Saturn becomes a driving force to transform your finances and your self-worth. So therefore you can create a more stable life. And maybe you are super devoted to communication, to create a new way to manage your finances. And maybe you are about to take a course, for example, or you are taking action about resolving a debt or a financial obligations. And potentially this full moon could be helping you to see clearer. But I also feel like that this full moon wants you to slow down a little bit and focus on yourself. Um, I mean, remember that your ruling planet Mercury is retrograde for the last few weeks. So maybe you feel a little bit drained right now. And I think you need to be the unapologetic version of yourself as well. Maybe you need to be assessing which habits and routines aren't working for you anymore. In what ways you have been neglecting potentially yourself. So these are some of the key factors that you might want to be taking into account. But actually, remember Mars. Mars in your second house is actually a part of a grand air trine. So the actions to earn money and pursue what you want, maybe it's security, are empowered. Of course, with a transformation in health or work, and that's the sixth house energy, and something to do with your future goals and your career as well. So potentially it's a career change. New choices just come to you. But Mars is opposing your Saturn and Neptune. So, like I said, maybe a death that is challenging your security, or maybe you have been unbalanced when it comes to your spending habits, or maybe you feel like that you don't have enough to spend, for example, on something that you truly desire. But I would say that surely this kite configuration, which superly focuses on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, it is about what are those fears, traumas, and losses that you need to be able to face. Okay, let's move on to Libra rising sign. So, dear Libra, this full moon is going to be taking place in your fifth house. We've got the Sun and Callisto conjunction in your 11th, Vesta in your second, and Mars in your first house, opposing Saturn in the seventh. So a couple of challenging scenarios. I mean, let's imagine that a romantic relationship is going through a crisis, potentially maybe by a betrayal from a friend or a social group. And then your entire identity is now in a direct conflict with a partner or someone that you are in collaboration with. And you seem to be devoted to your values as well as your finances, but you might be questioning it. And this full moon illuminates this injustice. Somehow you are feeling betrayed and isolated. I could also imagine that maybe you feel a little bit stifled when it comes to your creativity or blocked by the rules and the expectations of a partner. And of course, that Mars has got a desire to assert himself, but it meets with resistance. And maybe it makes it difficult to express yourself authentically. So somehow this full moon is illuminating a certain type of a betrayal related to a group that you are part of, and you kind of lose your creative spark. However, the positive side of this is that, like this full moon brings that sudden innovative opportunity to express yourself creatively. That is your personal story, like how you overcame a betrayal, for example. And then you can empower others with it. And I feel like Pallas Athene, which is the strategic mind, helps you find a creative way to solve this issue in your romantic life or your creative blockage and so forth. And Mars-Saturn can become the motivation to find a new partnership, for example, who is going to honor your individual needs. And maybe you use your devotion to your finances or values to find that creative way to partner up with someone. So let's make money through certain type of collaborations. You have got your individual needs, and there is the demand of the partnership. And that could become a source of inspiration as well. So this full moon might be telling us, let's find ways to work together. Libra, also I would say that um, when it comes to creative expression, or when you are ignoring your own impulses, or when you feel like not empowered, those are all detrimental. And Aquarius is really telling us that we need to be embracing our individuality so that we can step into our own creative power. Also remember that Mars in your first house makes a grand air trine with Uranus and Pluto as well. So it is really about, if you express who you are, then it can take you to new horizons. I feel like it's about listening to your gut feelings, acting on your gut feelings, maybe taking a risk, and it might lead to a success. Or you might be traveling somewhere and then new opportunities are coming through that. But maybe the partnership is a block to you, and that's why you don't want to take the risk, because there are rules within the relationship, and somehow you are thrown off by this person. So Saturn and Neptune is actually the focal point of a kite configuration. So surely something that we are projecting onto the other person or they project onto us have to be dealt with. It looks like that the relationship is a major key to success. Okay, let's move on to Scorpio rising sign. So Scorpio, we are going to have the Aquarius full moon in your fourth house. So the Sun and Callisto conjunction in your 10th, Vesta in your first, Libra, Mars in Libra in the 12th house, opposing Saturn in the sixth. I mean, imagine that your career is going through a crisis situation at the moment, potentially by a betrayal that is somehow rooted in your home life. Maybe you are very devoted to yourself and to your own integrity, but a hidden enemy or a self-sabotaging habit, and that's Mars in the 12th house, is also affecting your daily work, even your health, and you might be worried. So this full moon illuminates this injustice, making you somehow vulnerable. However, also it could feel like that your career is not moving anywhere. Maybe you have got this career that is blocked by the rules and the expectations of your daily life. And then you have got this hidden enemy or a self-sabotaging habit that is somehow causing a personal issue. And this full moon brings to light that your career is potentially based on a lie or a betrayal. And maybe I decided I want to be focused on myself and I want to be able to confront this issue directly. Positively speaking, though, this could really talk to you about an innovative opportunity in your career. It's a healing journey. Maybe you have been publicly betrayed before, the promises that were not delivered to you. And but I have come up with a solution to it. You are finding a way, a creative way to solve this long-lasting issue, for example, in your home life and in your family life. And maybe that Mars and Saturn opposition is giving you um, a new way to think about how to find an equitable way to work and live. So I think Vesta is a super big key here who says focus on the self. There are some long-standing issues, most likely at work. There's a lot of demand at work. Maybe you feel like that this is not paid off to you. Also, Scorpio Mars um, is part of a grand trine with Uranus and Pluto. And it looks like that there are changes in your home, but it leads to a psychological breakthrough, or you are freeing yourself up from old traumas, even that as well. It can really give you that, aha, I do understand where it all originates from. But Saturn Neptune can represent certain type of health issues or obligations, or it feels like that you have to be making sacrifices, for example, for your own family. Remember, Saturn and Neptune is the focal point of a a kite configuration. So there is something to be resolved when it comes to your work as well as your own well-being. Maybe you need to be making changes in your environment. Maybe it's a new workplace that you simply need. I would say that you definitely feel that have to be making changes at home. And with Aquarius, sometimes we make radical shifts. And Aquarius is an unapologetic version. So, it's kind of like telling someone to leave your home because I need the space only for me. So somehow you are required here to set certain type of boundaries with people that you live together with. So maybe it's a flatmate or, even a family member. Okay, let's move on to Sagittarius rising sign. So, dear Sagittarius, you have got the full moon in your third house. Therefore, we've got the Sun Callisto conjunction in your ninth house, Vesta in the 12th, Mars in Libra in the 11th house, and Saturn in Aries in the fifth house. So somehow there is your belief or your personal philosophy, and maybe this is going to be challenged by a sibling or a neighbor of yours. Maybe you feel like that you have been betrayed by a sibling and you feel that injustice, and then you start questioning everything. Was that true? Was it out of pure heart and so forth? But also your social circle can be in conflict with a creative project or with your romantic endeavors. Maybe you feel like that the friends don't treat me fairly, they don't let me be me. And you might be very focused of being alone or self-sabotaging habits that are holding you back to resolve all these issues. Maybe you feel like that creatively you are blocked as well, but there is a lot of expectations going on, for example, in among your friends. And there are those self-sabotaging habits there, which is whispering into your ear and potentially paralyzing you. But it really feels like that this full moon brings a light that your creative work is not moving forward, potentially because of a betrayal from the past. So, like your romantic life is not moving forward because you have been betrayed in the past, and then maybe you are being beating yourself up because of that. And maybe the problem is that right now with Vesta in Scorpio, what you need to be focusing on is to confront these issues directly. However, this full moon can really talk to us about an opportunity to communicate your ideas, to go through this personal healing from that belief system that you've got, that you grew up with, for example. And then you can empower others as well. The Palasatine is trying to find you a creative solution to some problems in your local environment, even at the school. And maybe this is the reason why you are ready to find new ways of communicating with people. And yes, you might be super focused on a hidden cause. Maybe there are some long-standing issues at work. Maybe there is a lot of workload going on, but you feel inspired to get this done. So this full moon is trying to get you to have a strategy and to live your life a little bit more comfortably. Let's just put it that way. And I would also say that the words that you say have got their own weights, you know. So maybe you want to be making huge changes and shifts in your life, but this could be something that we regret or we are afraid of. Maybe this is also telling us before we talk, we need to remember to pause, think twice before speaking, count to 10. And because the full moon goes through your third house and the ruler is in Aries. So things can be said too quickly. And the Saturn Mars opposition might suggest that, we just swinging some words out. Also, I would say that with Mars, which is very social right now, it is part of a grand trine with Uranus and Pluto. So you have got these lively connections going on. Potentially, you might be attracting clients, or you are feeling empowered by just talking to them and then exchanging ideas, for example. Or you can even make an impact on others as well quite easily. There are some creative blocks there, or the fears that I'm not talented, I'm not attractive enough, or I'm ashamed of my body, for example, I feel embarrassed. Remember, Saturn Neptune is the focal point of that kite configuration. So it means that we have to be working with those blocks and fears, and we need to be fully aware of our talent and capability and who we are. I feel like with this full moon, you can get a lot of answers. A lot of your questions can be answered. You can even get a message or a decision, for example, about work or a significant relationship, and then we come to a conclusion. Capricorn rising sign. So we do have got the full moon happening in your second house, which is the house of money. The Sun Callisto conjunction in your 8th, Vesta in your 11th, Mars in your 10th, Saturn in your 4th. So it could indicate that somehow your values are being challenged. Your money, your income is being challenged as well, maybe by a bank, for example, or someone who betrayed you financially before, maybe it was a partner. So there is an injustice, financial injustice here, potentially with a partner. and then you are asked to confront it, like to speak to this financial institution. It wasn't unfair. I got a parking ticket, it wasn't right, and all those type of stuff. But your career can be in direct conflict with your home life as well. So it could feel like that, I'm trying to work extremely hard and I'm trying to make this and that to bring money home, but there is no appreciation at home. So I don't feel fairly treated, for example, at work. But you are devoted to your friends or a group, but maybe those people are talking you out of something, so they are holding you back. And it can feel like that I am stuck somehow in my career. There is just expectations everywhere, at home, in my family, at work as well. And what all I create is some self-sabotaging habits. Maybe I'm super afraid of making a mistake. But somehow this full moon is illuminating your career. Potentially, maybe you got um, somehow uh, this full moon is illuminating your career, but as well as your finances. Like, is it worth doing it? Or shall I look for a new job, for example? However, potentially it can represent very good things as well. Maybe this is all about finding new ways how to transform your finances. Yes, you might have been financially betrayed in the past before, but it is empowering you to sort something out. And Palasatine is really giving you creative ways to sort out your own finances, your own career. And surely you want to be able to find ways of like living a happy life, but also doing a work that you love. So it really feels like that you are focused on um, finding that work and life balance. Now, on top of that, because this full moon is spotlighting your second house, which is also something to do with your possessions as well as security. I think not just about looking at your finances, but maybe you need to be making changes around how secure you feel, around your spending habits as well, what to invest into, how much money I have saved so far, or doing more of a thorough budgeting. Because Balasatini, remember, is all about planning. Okay, and this is the house of self-worth as well. So it's super important that you know what you deserve, and you shouldn't be afraid to get going, like to go after it. Because your qualities um need to be valued, basically. Now, we've got Mars in your career sector, and it does make that trine to Uranus and Pluto as well. So basically, we've got a grand air trine. So it really feels like that you want to be making a change in your ambitions. You have got a different approach to money and values. You want to do something new, potentially. And it looks like that it's all going to help you to advance further, to even succeed. What the problem could be here is, of course, the opposition to Saturn and Neptune. Like, oh, I've got obligations towards a family, a home, I have to be paying the rent, or your family members are undermining you. So this can be preventing you from advancing further. Okay. And because Saturn and Neptune is the focal point, maybe imagine that you don't live at the right place. Maybe you need to be able to think about relocating. Okay, Aquarius rising sign. You are the next one. And of course, this is going to be very important because this full moon is happening in your first house. And first of all, first house full moon, but you've got the Sun and Callisto conjunction in your seventh, Vesta in your 10th, Mars in your ninth, Saturn in your third. So on one hand, this could really talk to us about identity crisis. Like you feel betrayed in a relationship, for example, and then it throws you off. You don't know what to do anymore. You feel like you have been treated unfairly. I'm questioning of who I am, what I stand for, how to get forward. And then you've got Mars in the ninth, which is your belief system. Maybe you turn a bit more sour. Your beliefs are a little bit more negative. And there is all these expectations from others, expectations from the sibling and the local community and so forth. And you do definitely feel that I have to fight for fairness. But somehow I cannot do that, maybe because of my position in the world, because of my career. So somehow your career could feel blocked. Um, Potentially, you can feel that nothing is moving forward in your life. Everything is crumbling around you, relationship, who I am, as well as work-related matters. But positively speaking, it looks like that you're going through a personal transformation. Who am I? I'm going to change it completely. So therefore, it's a journey of healing. Yes, you had maybe a crappy relationship, and now I'm going to stand up from it. I'm going to feel empowered. And surely that Palasatini helps you to find creative ways to solve any type of long-standing issues, for example, in your career, in your home life. And you are ready to communicate about your personal needs, potentially in different ways. I think because Vesta is in your 10th, it's all about being devoted to your career. And if there had been any issues at work, we can actually overcome them. But you're going to have to be able to transform your belief systems slightly bit. Now, this full moon in Aquarius is spotlighting you. So it means that everything is within you. You're just going to have to dig a little bit deeper. You have to be reflecting on who you are, what you want from life, how you show up in the world. And maybe necessary changes have to be made, and we're going to have to be somehow meeting halfway with other people, for example. But somehow it looks like that you are entering a new chapter into your life. And I think you shouldn't be afraid of making these changes. The reason why, because Mars is in an air grand trine with Pluto and Uranus as well. So, I mean, with Mars, in the ninth house, maybe I'm ready to travel. I'm ready to study. I'm ready to fight against injustice through legal forces, for example. And this is very nicely supported. I really feel like that you are a newly emerging individual and you are ready to take a risk. You are ready to show who you are, and you can really get in touch with fated like contacts as well. It looks like you get a bit of the luck is on your side, basically. What is holding you back is certain type of mental blocks, like lack of official documents, or you don't have the balls to say something out loud, or you don't feel confident, and all these type of things slowing you down. Remember, Saturn Neptune is the focal point of that kite configuration. So that communication needs to be sorted. It's all about determination to communicate, to be somehow even consistent. And last but not least, Pisces rising sign. So this full moon is happening in your 12th house, but we've got the Sun Callisto conjunction in your 6th, Vesta in your 9th, Mars is in your 8th, and Saturn therefore is in your 2nd. Maybe you feel like that you got betrayed. Or there are these bad habits and they are getting spotlighted for you. These bad habits potentially affecting your health as well as your daily routines. It's kind of like, I used to do something and it has caused me certain type of issues. But also maybe you feel the need to fight for financial fairness as well. Maybe there is a bit of a fear around finances, or you've got debts that you don't want to talk about, or they are holding you back somehow. You are worried about your own finances as well. But Vesta is super focused, for example, on relocation, and it's holding on to certain type of beliefs. And if these are negative beliefs, you're gonna have to let them go. There could be financial problems here as well. I mean, maybe someone who owes you money, or you've got certain type of financial obligations towards institutions, and they are going to be sending you letters, and you are worried about it. Somehow your work is affected. And of course, you are very devoted to find a solution. Now, however, this could also talk to you about healing breakthroughs. I mean, first of all, maybe you are able to walk away from a health issue, a chronic health issue, just by transforming your daily habits. Maybe uh, you find creative solutions to solve these financial issues as well. And maybe it's all about feeling motivated to get the finances right, to create a more stable life. You've got that at the back of your mind, and then this full moon is trying to illuminate those negative things. And also maybe, like I said, there could be some issues with your work as well. And then now you are doing the brainstorming, kind of like working behind the scenes. What else can I do? On top of that, I would say that you can get a lot of intuitive hits as well, like what I'm meant to be doing. But I think you need to be paying attention to these messages. You are receiving these messages, but in kind of encrypted, coded ways, and you're gonna have to be able to translate them. And also, this moon might be revealing certain type of old wounds that you need to be able to heal as well. Now, like I said, that Mars is doing super well currently. Well, well, at least it is making a trine to Pluto and Uranus. So therefore, we've got a grand air trine. So first of all, because it's so connected to finances, maybe this is talking to us about financial collaborations with others. Maybe you are trying to sort out certain type of debts, taxes, or your partner's finances. Even you just want to get more intimate as well. And obviously, it is trining the fourth house and the 12th house. So this could indicate inheritance that you didn't expect from a family, or maybe you are able to sell a home, renting out a property. So there could be some extra income coming up. Or maybe you are thinking about relocation and you want to be relocating somewhere where the finances could be sorted, or where you can go like heal from all traumas as well. But it is opposing Saturn. So let's say you are planning a a relocation, but you've got some financial blockages there, some financial shortfalls, or Saturn and Neptune demands you to do a reality check around your expenditures, for example. Saturn Neptune is the focal point of this kite configuration. So how efficient I am when it comes to finances. So good luck, everyone. And I hope this report helps. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Through every sign and every house, a journey starts, and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Viktor, It's here for you.